Good evening and welcome to the Pilgrim United Church of Christ Antiracism Book Club. Tonight we're reading part 3 of James Baldwin's Notes of a Native Son. Before we get started in our small group discussions, I'm going to take a few moments to read a passage from James Baldwin and show you a little video clip to enhance the reading, and then we'll go into our book club. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can read along with me. From Stranger in the Village, page 164 in my Kindle edition. Baldwin writes, "But I remain as much a stranger today as I was the first day I arrived. And the children shout, 'Nigger, nigger,' as I walk along the streets. It must be admitted that in the beginning, I was far too shocked to have any real reaction." I'm going to pause right there and say, both from experience myself and from others, and anyone who's been in a situation of challenge or insult, in hindsight, you would say, "Oh, I should have said this, I should have done that." But in the moment that it happens to you, shock is your dominant emotion, and it is paralyzing. And that's what Baldwin's writing. But it happens often enough that he can consider other reactions as well. It must be admitted that in the beginning, I was far too shocked to have any real reaction, insofar as I reacted at all. I reacted by trying to be pleasant, it being a great part of the American Negro's education, long before he goes to school, that he must make people like him. This smile and the world smiles with you routine worked about as well in this situation as it had in the situation for which it was designed, which is to say that it did not work at all. No one, after all, can be liked whose human weight and complexity cannot be or has not been admitted. My smile was simply another unheard of phenomenon which allowed them to see my teeth. They did not really see my smile. I began to think that should I take to snarling, no one would notice any difference. All of the physical characteristics of the Negro, which had caused me, in America, a very different and almost forgotten pain, were nothing less than miraculous or infernal in the eyes of the village people. Some thought my hair was the color of tar, that it had the texture of wire or the texture of cotton. It was jocularly suggested that I might let it all grow long and make myself a winter coat. If I sat in the sun for more than 5 minutes, some daring creature was certain to come along and gingerly put his fingers on my hair, as though he were afraid of an electric shock, or put his hand on my hand, astonished that the color did not rub off. In all of this, in which it must be conceded there was the charm of genuine wonder, and in which there was certainly no element of intentional unkindness, there was yet no suggestion that I was human. I was simply a living wonder. I knew that they did not mean to be unkind, and I know it now. It is necessary, nevertheless, for me to repeat this to myself each time that I walked out of the chalet. The children who shout, "Nigger," have no way of knowing the echoes this sound raises in me. They are brimming with good humor, and the more daring swell with pride when I stop to speak with them. Just the same, there are days when I cannot pause and smile, when I have no heart to play with them, when indeed I mutter sourly to myself, exactly as I muttered on the streets of a city these children have never seen, when I was no bigger than these children are now, your mother was a nigger. Joyce is right about history being a nightmare, but it may be the nightmare from which no one can awaken. People are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them. I want to show you now a video that demonstrates that Baldwin's point is not only an experience of the single Black person in a Swiss Alps village filled with white people that have never seen a Black person. It is a continual and ongoing experience of Black people in white spaces. When I was at Harvard, I remember back in the day, this is in the 70s, when French braids for boys were all the rage, and that was the thing. And so I had my hair braided, and the fellas in the locker room, white fellas in the locker room, were just absolutely fascinated. How did you get it that way? Do they cut the braids in, or they cut the paths in? They thought I'd taken a razor to all the parts. You have like 10 parts in your hair. They thought I'd taken a razor and cut it in there. So this fascination with Black hair is a continuing obsession to this day. But her point and Baldwin's point was fascination is not the same as recognition of your humanity. And that's what everyone wants. That's all that Black people want. That's Baldwin's constant refrain. I am human. In another place, he says, the civilized can never describe the humanity of the savage, because once they've decided that they're savage, there's no humanity to describe. But his truth is, Black people know that they're human and spend most of their energy and time trying to convince white people that they're human. And that if we want to understand savage behavior, just look at what white people did in colonial Africa. Just look at what white people did in the South and in the enslaved states to the enslaved people of the United States of America. That's savage. And so while it might seem trite, and we often dismiss these microaggressions, as the young lady said, I'm not an object. There was another version that I thought put it even more cleverly. Another Harvard student said, no, you cannot pet my hair. So I'll end there, and I'll invite those of you who are on Facebook Live to contact Pilgrim UCC if you'd like to be a part of our anti-racism book club. And for those of you who are in our book club tonight, we're going to